my on my screen. How are we celebrating? How are we celebrating over here? What we got? Gary, what are you doing tonight?
We're going over to some friend's house for which that's where we've gone for the last 7 years.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Safta, who leads at your Seder, Safta?
We're all going to take part.
Oh, okay. Egalitarian over here. Okay, fabulous. Everybody's going to take parts in here. We got some good stuff. Roy, are you doing something for Seder tonight or over this time?
I'm working on how to do it myself.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm all new to this. And so this is my chance to kind of practice and figure out.
Wait a minute. Where do you live?
In Palos Verdes.
Well, how about you come to my daughter's house tonight? She has a huge Seder in her backyard, 35 people, most of whom don't know each other. And sometimes she gets up to 50 people. And you cannot be alone. She writes her own Haggadah.
She does an amazing job.
She does a fabulous job. She invites people like the B'nai Mitzvah class is coming tonight.
That's very sweet.
You have to come, Roy.
Okay, well, I need the address and time. So
give me your email and I will send it to you.
Fabulous.
That's so sweet.
How sweet.
You want to put it in the chat?
Roy, you can put it in the chat or just give it to me.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
Putting it in the chat.
Okay, we'll see you tonight.
Thank you.
How
thoughtful.
She does it. Oh, it's gonna be fun. She does a little. Whoa, look at that. I love it. She does it fabulous.
Yeah. Anybody else alone?
I'm alone.
You're alone.
Transportation, darling.
Transportation's a problem because we don't drive either.
Don't worry. I don't want to know. I'll just pray for you. You pray for me. Elijah will be here.
Perfect. Betty, what you got going on?
Family, and I'll be leading the Seder.
Ooh.
So those, Rabbi, do you trust me? Do you trust me to lead the Seder?
100%. Are you kidding me?
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Rabbi.
It's so funny when people ask that kind of, it's like, it's the best. You bring you and you do your spiel and your spit. That's like, it's the #1 celebrated holiday. Did you know that Passover is the #1 celebrated Jewish holiday, more than Rosh Hashanah, more than any of the? Why? Because it's like done in the home, and this is the home thing. It's supposed to be done in the house, right?
Thank you, Risa.
It's the fabulous. I love it, Betty. Merle, what you up to?
Well, tonight it's Gabby and Arnie and myself, and Gabby's going to lead us in a little Seder, just the three of us.
Beautiful.
And then Jason and Sharon and Sasha are at a mandatory karate competition, and they will be held that we don't know why it was scheduled for this, but we can't fight it. So we will.
You do karate. You can't fight in a karate. No karate. You're not supposed to fight.
They're not fighting, but
good.
You know what they do, and she had to go defend her championship for the USA level, and the studio really wanted her there, so they gave in, and we're going to have us and our extended family, all the Roberts kids, Sunday night. And some other friends that are dear family from our whole lives, and that'll be Sunday night. And I just got home from the grocery store, and I will start cooking and finish cooking, and Gabby's going to help Arnie make matzo balls this afternoon.
Oh, matzo balls. I love it. Are you a sinker or a floater person?
Floater.
You're a floater. I'm a sinker. I'm a mix. I'm a mixed bag. Depends on the day.
It depends, and it's more about the flavor. Not everything comes out perfect, so sometimes they do sink. But we were at a gala at Temple a couple of weeks ago, and they had these shot glasses with matzo ball soup in them. Little itty bitty matzo balls that were sinkers, but they were so little that it was just part of the decor and the food.
Anybody made matzo?
It was interesting.
You make kugel?
I make matzo kugel, Miriam Wolf's recipe. In fact,
all right, Miriam Wolf's. That's good. Roy, what you got?
I factored it up a bit to make it sweeter. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
I have a question.
Yes.
kind of dealing with Ashkenazim versus Sephardism and how they handle it.
Bring it.
So if you're Ashkenazim and you're invited to a Sephardic Pesach and they have legumes and rice or, whatever, how do you handle it?
Look at you. All right. I'll get into that one in a second, but I love that, Roy. I love that. And I have an answer for you that's not so flip, though it may sound it, but it's not. I'll give you, Brad. What are you doing for Passover? Are you doing
Well,
this week?
we are hosting family
Okay.
and friends. We were a group of 14, but we just had a cancellation.
Oh,
So we are 13. So Risa, I'm going to compete with you for Roy because we prefer not to have 13 at table. 14 would be better. And maybe we are even more geographically desirable because we're in Santa Monica. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to send you our address as well. And you let me know if you'd like to come to
look at the Jewish.
Oh, Roy,
because you would be doing us a mitzvah
listen to this.
It's a Seder war.
So
by making,
Competition.
by making a
Brad's
table
making it about him.
by making a table of 14 rather than 13.
So you have a choice, Roy. 14 people in probably a very, very traditional, lovely Seder, or in the backyard, lots of fun, whatever you want.
You take the
I have to
pictures I
give
wanna
Brad
see.
ultimate kudos because a Stanford man is inviting a cacao man into his house.
Well, so, Roy, that kind of answers your question. That kind of answers your question that you just asked. I love it. And we'll get there in a second.
I have a mitzvah.
Mitzvah. What's your mitzvah, Donna?
My friend, Rick Dragon, who's a gay friend of the temple at Cars we met, he writes for Days of Our Lives, and he heard me singing. He's in New York to see his friend Andrew Lloyd, and he's going to mention my musical abilities to Mr. Weber.
Wow. Well, that's
that's
fun.
although I'm all alone. Maybe God wants me to enjoy the loneliness right now.
Well,
my gosh. Can you imagine?
I
My
can't
family was
imagine.
so proud. I can imagine.
I can't
I've been
even
practicing
imagine.
all I ask of you all day.
All right. Well,
For my
Doug,
grandchildren.
what do you got going on for us? What you got going on, Doug?
Well, it's just going to be my wife and I, and I made the harosis and mitzvahs this morning. The meat's ready to go. The table's set, so we're ready to go.
So tell me about your charoset.
Almonds, walnuts, spices, grape juice, honey, and 4 apples.
And 4
Yum.
and 4 apples. So we're going Ashkenaz. We're going Ashkenaz over here,
Oh.
right? So we've got we do a combo at my house. We have the dates one and the stuff, and we have the apples ones and the stuff. We're doing a combo. So here's how I'm going to answer Roy's question about like, well, what do you do? What I would do versus what one may do, right? It's like this idea of shalom bayit. You're going to somebody's house and you're going to follow what's customary in their seder. And then it becomes a personal preference. What do you do? Are you going to, you can just politely pass on something or you can, okay, I'm going to do this for the sake of shalom bayit and for the sake of learning and for the sake of experience. And to say, because in my house, what I think about this, like this idea of am echad, this one people. So I'm open to trying and experiencing different Jewish expressions of the holidays, right? I'm open to trying different ways. It's like, why is it? It's so interesting to me that this is like the one holiday where it's like, well, if you're this, then you're going to do that, and if you're this, then you're going to do that. But what does it really mean to be this anymore? right? What does this even mean to be this anymore? What happens in families where some of the family are Ashkenazi, some of the family are not Ashkenazi, right? Because you have Sfaradi, you have Mizrahi, you have Italian, you have, I mean, there's so many different avenues to choose from. That I personally am open to experiencing all of those and kind of enjoy experiencing all of those. So it's like you said, you're having a Stanford guy and a Cal guy, but at the end of the day, you're having an Am Echad, one people's people, right? It's like, yes, I understand that's a mixed marriage of a Cal and a Stanford, or like a UCLA, USC, but when it comes to this thing, he's like, we can even celebrate together. So that is a it's like a really non-academic answer to your fabulous question, Roy. Which I just love. All right. Did I see that there was a hand? No. Good, great, grand. So here's the question. For those of us maybe who studied together also last year around this time, or maybe even a couple of years ago, this is one of the things that I love to talk about on this thing, that we can't look at Jewish experience, right, you can't look at Jewish holidays and Jewish experience in a vacuum, right? We can't look at Jewish experience and Jewish holidays in a vacuum. That here we are celebrating this thing. And the question I love to ask is, well, how did we get there in the first place? Right? What were we doing there in the first place? What business did we have being in Egypt? Why were we there? Right? Why were we there? Let's just throw it out there. I know that some of us have some ideas. Some of us, what were we doing there in the first place?
Because of the coat of many colors.
Oh, so all right, we're on the right path here because of the coat of many colors. What does that mean? Why were we? Penina's shaking her head.
Joseph being sold into slavery and his brother's jealousy and God's plan to bring us into Egypt.
Oh no! Those are two. Okay, that was very interesting. You just kind of threw that out there. Well, we got Joseph and his brothers, and him selling them and sending Joseph away because they were upset at him and jealous and whatnot. But then we've got this quote unquote God's plan going on over here. Penina, what did you want to say? Go ahead, Safta.
I did my DNA thing. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I
did
yes.
my DNA. Talia explained it. So I found out that I have like 11% of Mesopotamian in it, and North Egypt, and Levantine. So it kind of throws me back all the way to the beginning. If it's Mesopotamia, it's Abraham. So it's like unbelievable. So answering your question, we are such a mixture, but Egypt, yes, was, I would say, a point of change in the era, and getting out of there was the beginning of monotheism. So here we go.
Fabulous. So in our story, let's focus on our story. How did we get there in the first place? In our story, how did we get there in the first place?
Joseph brought his family down there.
Okay.
And they were given a part of the land and Goshen, and they lived there and multiplied. And that's what Pharaoh feared of. That's what he said. They're multiplying and they're becoming a majority.
All right,
fabulous. Yeah.
Doug, what you got?
They went there originally to avoid the famine.
Okay. So they went originally. This is the part that I also just find very fascinating. So they went down there to avoid the famine, right? They had no idea what the famine was. They had no idea what was going on. Only the people in Egypt and the real surrounding area knew what was going on. Why? Because of Joseph, right? So here we are with Joseph. And if I'm saying stuff that you guys you're like, duh, yeah, we know, let's keep going, tell me. And if I'm telling you some things that you're like, wait, what? Stop and tell me that as well. Okay, just because I don't want to make any assumptions here. So yeah, so they were going down there right? What happened? Joseph's brothers with the code and everything, they sold them into, they threw him into the pit, but that was just like, nothing was going to happen. They say you're sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, but he doesn't really mean it. He's like, yeah, I don't really mean it. You just threw me in this pit. I want to get out of the pit. That's why I'm saying I'm sorry. So his brothers were like, this is not working out for us. They see these travelers. They send him away. The travelers take him to Egypt. He gets sold to this dude Potiphar, who was one of the people taking care of one of many pharaohs, many houses. Potiphar, he was working for Potiphar. Things are working out. Potiphar's wife wanted to hang out with Joseph too. And Joseph's like, I can't do that. Potiphar's wife's like, oh, yeah, what? Excuse me, I'm off. You don't want to hang out with me, and So I'm going to tell some lies about you. Tells her husband some lies about Joseph. Joseph gets sent to jail. Joseph's like, oh man, why is this happening to me? He's hanging out with a baker and the butler of Pharaoh in the jail, because Pharaoh at the time, he's throwing people in jail left and right. He's like, what am I doing here? He's like, oh, you set the table all terrible, Mr. Butler. Boom, you go into jail. Oh, baker, my toast is a little extra burnt today. Boom, you go into jail, right? So he's just throwing people in their jail left and right. Joseph's hanging out with these guys. These guys are having some dreams. They're really bothering them. It turns out, as Joseph is able to, it's the evolution of his soothsaying or something like that, right? He has these dreams when he was younger about his brothers. He doesn't know what they mean necessarily, but he remembers them, right? With his brothers were these stars, but Joseph was a bigger and more bright star, and the stars are bowing down to the bigger, brighter star. We have the bundles of wheat, and Joseph is a bigger bundle of wheat, and the bundles of wheat are all bowing down. And he's telling his brothers this, like, yeah, you guys are going to be bowing down to me, and it's awesome. And his brothers are like, dude, we would never do that. And that's what started the whole thing. So now he's actually able to, it's the evolution of his understanding of his dreams. He is now able to tell people what their dreams mean. And he tells the baker and then the butler that they're going to be getting out of jail in a little bit because the Pharaoh's going to need their help. Turns out he was right, but they forget to tell Pharaoh about Joseph. So Joseph's stuck in jail. And then Pharaoh has these dreams. Remember this? Do we remember this? Pharaoh has these dreams. Yes, we remember about the seven beautiful bundles of wheat and the 7 dried up bundles of wheat. The 7 dried up bundles of wheat swallow the big beautiful bundles of wheat whole, but they stay all shriveled and dried up. And then the same thing with the cows, big beautiful massive cows, and then the dried up shriveled cows, right? They come up to the big beautiful cows and they swallow those cows up whole, but then they stay all still shriveled. Joseph, the Pharaoh wakes up. He's like, oh, what are these dreams? Joseph tells him what the dreams mean. He's like, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. But this was God's plan all along. God's plan all along. So this is the thing, right? This is the thing. And this was the plan to set up in order to create this tribal group of tribes would eventually become tribes into more of a collective people that are a collective people made up of tribes, rather than it just happens to be that there's this collective people and the tribe is more central to the idea of this collective, something that we have all in common, right? But for us to say, oh, we were there and it was terrible, we had multiple opportunities. Here's the thing. We had multiple opportunities to go back to the promised land. We had multiple opportunities. The famine didn't last the entire time, right? Okay, 7 years. The Pharaoh, who was Joseph's, Joseph was Pharaoh's best friend, right-hand man, says, oh, they come down here, any family of Joseph, the family of mine, I have a great idea. You guys all come down and move here. Leave Canaan, Shmanan. That place is terrible. That place is terrible, right? It's all dried up because there's a famine. Why is there a famine? God made the famine there to send everybody to Egypt, to send them down. The Pharaoh invites them to come and live, right? Pharaoh invites them to come and live. Come to Goshen. It's beautiful. It's just right outside of Egypt. It's like Encino. We're just, in the valley. Come to Encino. I'll give you a fabulous house, land. It's going to be great. Don't worry about that. Canaan, Shmanan, the place is all dried up. There's nothing there for you. So the brothers are like, oh yeah, this is great. So they moved to the valley, right? Like any good Jew. They moved to the valley, house and whatnot. So now, but check it out. Okay. Do they ever get to go back to the promised land? after the 7 years are over, they have now multiplied, and it's a lot of people. Do they get a chance to go back to the promised land? Do you remember this?
Moses
Benny, you shaking your head no? No, way before Moses. Way!
Yeah, I know. Way
Moses. No. We're still talking about the brothers.
Okay.
We're talking about the brothers here.
Yes, Rabbi.
Shaking her head. Tell us, Penina. Tell us, Sapta. Did they get a chance to go back and check it out? You're muted. Sapta, you're muted. Nobody mutes Sapta except for Zoom.
Well, Jacob told them from the beginning, when he dies, he wants his bones to be buried in Israel. When you go back, so the idea of going back was there all the whole time. All it needed was like bad times to push them.
So check out what happened. Jacob dies. Right? And even on his deathbed, he's like, dude, this was not the right thing. Should we have done this? This was a bad idea. But his son said to him, this is what his son said to him. And Gary, maybe you're going to recognize this one from were we together last week? Was it last week? Last week when we said, Jacob is on his deathbed, and Jacob's like, man, should we have really left the promised land? And his son say to him, tell me if this sounds familiar, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Or basically, Shema Yisrael, listen, Israel, meaning Jacob, because that's the dad's name, right? God is our God. God is one. Saying to him, don't worry, you did a good job raising us. We still know who we are. Okay, you did a good job. And then he's able to die. And that's what the beautiful midrash on the Shema. So he dies. They bring him back to the promised land to bury him. And then they have a choice. Famine's over. Things are, starting to look pretty good back in the promised land. Things are growing again. Animals are there to grow and to herd and take care of. The fields are good. But they choose to go back to Goshen. Life is easier. It's better. They're like, we're good. Oh, Nina, go ahead. Defend their choice. Oh, hey, beautiful. What's going on?
Okay, if they would be,
Nina, defend their choice.
No, I'm not. Okay, I think the 10 plagues and the fact that it was a new Pharaoh that didn't know of Joseph, the atmosphere there was totally different. It's not like the same Pharaoh. It says purposely.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen for hundreds more years. I'm still talking about when they...
Right. But when they leave, they remember that they have to put a mark on the thing. So the 10 plagues was kind of like, and I would say a good initiative because...
Yes, but Nina, you're jumping way too far ahead. I agree with you with this initiative and all that kind of fabulous stuff.
It doesn't come in one day.
No, you're jumping way too far ahead. We're still hundreds of years early, where the brothers are still there, and there is no proliferation, right?
There was a time of being slaves, right? There was
but this is even before this. No, this is even before.
Isn't that a good initiative to live?
It's before. I'm talking about before. Okay. I'm talking about before when they could have already gone home. They didn't look at Goshen as like temporary.
Got it. Okay.
They could have gone home. They even went home. Their father and been like, it's nice, but I need a fourth bedroom and maybe a pool.
Okay.
The 3-bedroom, no pool, or the townhouse or the condo. You know what? It's nice. It's good. I mean, the weather's decent and whatnot. I'm going to stick with my backyard, my pool and my 4th bedroom. That's what I'm going to do. This is what they said to themselves. Right? So, yes, they got sent down there at first by God, but then they had the choice and they chose to go back. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, I mean, is the analogy Jews living in the diaspora today who are choosing to remain, for example, here in the United States and not go back to Israel?
Yes, I'm not saying that out loud. I'm not making any judgments. But you are absolutely right. But what does that say? What does that say? Ooh, now we're going, you're taking us in a direction. You're taking us in a direction, right? Like, don't be surprised with anti-Semitism. I'm not surprised. Does it upset me? Yes. Am I surprised? I'm not surprised. Surprised? Upsetting? Yes. Painful? Yes. Surprising? Penina's
Pharaoh
Benny,
enslaved.
hold on, Penina. I know that Benny had Benny had his hand, but now he's talking to somebody in the drive-through. I'll have a Diet Coke and extra fries. Somebody in the drive-through. Go ahead, Penina.
Okay, he didn't enslave only the Hebrews. There were many other slaves. He enslaved all the nations that they conquered. So slavery was like a time at that time in Egypt that many other not Jewish people left with them. That's the whole idea of living in slavery that pushed them to want to go out or join the Hebrews to go out.
So it had to get that bad.
It did.
It had to get that bad. So just being able to be comfortable enough to go home wasn't enough. It had to get that bad to where like everything was taken away. And it's
Yes.
like, that is an interesting it's
That's
a
why
very
600,000
interesting
people
point.
left.
Yeah, but it comes to like the reasons for, okay, so I'm taking it in a little bit of a direction, but this is fascinating because I was reading about this recently, like reasons for aliyah or moving or any of those kind of things. I see you, Brad. Let me just get this point out and then you totally got the floor. The difference between something pulling you versus something pushing you. Right? Something pulling you, like I want to be there versus I don't want to be here. Bye, Benny. See you. Chag Sameach. No apologies necessary. Right? And the pull wasn't strong enough, but the push was. Brad, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. I was just listening to a podcast where they talked about how it takes a crisis for the phantoms of the past to come back to haunt us. So whereas post World War II, we thought anti-Semitism was a dead issue. We thought there would never be war again in Europe. Who thought that there would be another Spanish plague that impacted the world in the early 20th century? We were lulled, but these phantoms are always there, and it just takes a crisis of some sort to bring them back to life, and that was missing in your story. There wasn't a crisis that would trigger the kind of reaction that I'm talking about.
Totally, right? I totally agree there. So is that the difference between something external versus something internal, right? The pull is internal and the push is external. Yeah, like, because it's just so fascinating. One of the arguments that I was listening to in Israel about refugees and letting what number of refugees is, regardless, Jewish, not Jewish, the vast majority of those refugees, they would much rather be able to go back home to their homes. They don't want to stay. They don't want to stay in Israel if we don't have to. Right? We don't want to stay in the United States if we don't have to. We want to be able to go back home, but we can't right now. Right? Don't think that we're coming over here and we're staying. If it gets better there, we want to go back. Right? I mean, this is Risa, you're looking at me cuckoo.
Not cuckoo, just kind of reliving my life with Aliyah and having to come back, and what was the pull and what was the push. And, it varies as you live these things.
Absolutely. It is so nuanced, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking about it from, 10,000 feet.
Right.
Right. So that's how I'm able to talk about it in absolutes and platitudes and all this kind of stuff.
Well, you left Israel.
Well, I would pull and push, and yeah, you're right. And I've been going back and forth. You're absolutely right.
Right. And
100%.
It's very hard. The pull that brought us there was there for years before we moved on it. It was the day of retirement, gone.
Wow.
We went the next day. We planned it. We planned it, but we made it the next day. So we were gone. And coming back was a push from the children who didn't like the fact that we were aging with illness, and they didn't like us being in the hospitals in Israel. So we had to respond. But we would go back in a minute if we were younger and healthier. In a minute.
I'd give anything to see Israel.
We'd live our lives in Israel.
Wow.
Merle, what you got for us?
I'm thinking about this push-pull thing.
Yeah.
And what everybody else has said. I think the pull is constantly in us, that we always have some kind of conflict, whether it's to move somewhere, move away from somewhere. Would I love to live back in Los Angeles? I don't know, but would I love to have my friends back in Los Angeles? Yeah, but I think it's what we do. I think the push is what we do to make the pull happen. Like now that the pandemic's not so bad, I can go back and forth to LA and I can do most of the things I used to do. Or I can go visit my family in New York finally, and the kids can go to New York and all the cousins can see each other. But I think the push is whatever's going on in our heads, bodies, whatever. And the pull is what we do, or what we do to make whatever can happen, happen. I'm looking at friends that have been to the Ukraine or to Poland and to do what they could do. Yeah, I would love to do that, but it's not going to happen. But in whatever way I can, whether it's here in the United States, whether it's somewhere else, whether it's for the Karsh Center, whether it's whatever we do, that's the push to set us in the direction to do whatever we can do to make whatever is pulling us do, if that makes sense.
I'll take it. Beautiful.
I want to do it all, and I know I can.
Yes, you do. Well, with the power of Zoom, you seem to be able to do everything.
I'm close.
So
For Facebook, I can do it.
All right. So now let's move on a few hundred years. Now we've got this new Pharaoh. So this is what's interesting, right? Life was good when the Pharaoh liked us. Then there's a new Pharaoh in town. And this Pharaoh was like, I don't know who this Joseph guy was, right? All I know is that there's all these Israelites hanging out over here, and there's more and more and more of them. And I don't like it. I don't trust them. I don't like them. They're different than us. We got to do something about it. And they're like, ha, great idea. Let's enslave them. This'll keep them from becoming more and more and more. It's going to be
and throw their babies to the bottle, the firstborn.
Yeah, I didn't want to, okay. And, we're going to be destroying their
We'll live with
firstborn.
Right.
We're going to destroy their firstborn. We are going to just try and make these people's lives as miserable as possible, right? As miserable as possible. Now, there were these two nursemaids, right? Who were like, this Israelite God, can't mess with this Israelite God. We're not going to do that. And one of the babies that they saved was whom?
Moses.
Okay. However, we don't actually know his real name, do we?
Right.
We don't actually know Moses' real name, because who gave him that name, Moses?
Daughter.
The
I mean,
Pharaoh's
the
daughter.
Pharaoh's daughter.
Pharaoh's daughter. Because
Right.
Pharaoh's daughter found Moses when then they put him in the basket, right? Everybody knows the basket it did. And then, but here's the thing. How long do you think, when they said, Miriam, Moses' daughter, Moses' sister, who was there, was like, oh, Pharaoh's daughter, you found his baby. Yeah, you're right. It is a Hebrew kid. I happen to know a fabulous nursemaid who could help you out. I happen to know this fabulous nursemaid that can help you out. Turns out, Pharaoh's not, Miriam doesn't tell this to Pharaoh's daughter. It's actually the baby's mom, right? And they said, now this is very interesting. Get ready. I'm going to share a little text with you, which I like to do on occasion. Let me get to the share screen.
Do we know how she came up with the name Moses? Or does anyone
Yeah, well,
know?
they
Yeah,
said
drew
like
him out of the water.
an Egyptian word
Uh-huh.
meaning, and some say like the Hebrew word moshech, right, to pull.
No, for sure.
Masho, to draw forth.
Right.
Right? So she says, the daughter of
draw
Pharaoh
from.
came down to bathe in the Nile. Do you all see this? My text? Good. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile. While her maidens walked along the Nile, she spied the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to fetch it. When she opened it, she saw it was a child, a boy crying. She took pity on it and said, this must be a Hebrew child. Then his sister, meaning the baby, said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get you a Hebrew nurse to suckle the child for you? And the Pharaoh's daughter answered, yes. So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, okay, check this out. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child and nurse it for me, and I will pay your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, who made him her son. She named him Moses, explaining, I drew him out of the water. Now, here's what I find fascinating. So the girl went to call the children, and the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child and nurse it for me. I'll pay your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter. What is that about? What is that about? When the child grew up, she brought him back to the house. So what happened in that time while the child was growing up? Does he know his actual name? Does he know the story? Does he know what's going on? Does he know who he really is? What is in that one line, how long was he nursing for? Back in the day, I don't know. Go ahead, Roy.
Well, that would be my question is how do you define grow up? Is it till when you turn 13 or, and did he, grow up speaking Hebrew, dressed in Hebrew clothes? How would then, when he went to the court, get all the
man, for sure. And all we have this big bombshell right here of when the child grew up. Huh? Grow up initially? How long is this kid nursing for? I mean, what? How long can a kid nurse? Risa and then Safta.
No, I just say, as far as I'm concerned, it's when he was weaned. So when he was weaned, I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know the times, but 5 years old, 6 years old. I mean, I doubt the milk is properly nourishing at that age.
Yeah, but still 5 years.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe it was 2 years. Nobody knows.
I think it's probably, look, I remember I had a classmate in HUC who the person would run and say, Mom, I'm hungry.
So
the kid could be able to speak and talk and say, it's like, go ahead, softer than Merle.
Okay, we are getting hung up on the numbers of the years. That's not the whole idea. The idea is that when he grew up, the first thing he did is went to see what's going on with his people. So the whole idea that she stayed until he grew up was enough time to instill the fact that he's a Hebrew. Because the first thing that he said, he said that he decided to go see what's going on with these people. So he knew that he was Hebrew. So the whole idea is not how many years it took. It's how much did he absorb about being Hebrew.
Yafe. Great. So why is it then that we don't know his name?
The name stuck. It means he was drawn out of the water. Water
Yeah,
is a source of life.
He didn't get that name until after he went into the house of Pharaoh. The entire time.
Okay. Like we are being hung up on numbers.
No,
it's
not numbers.
Not being hung up. It's saying like, well, what is on here and all the different things that could happen during that time. Where you see hung up, I see infinite possibility.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
mother was teaching him
Right?
Hebrew.
Yes.
His
Well,
mother was teaching him.
We know that the Hebrews knew he was Hebrew.
Yes.
okay, so the
Only
Hebrews
after
knew
they
this
killed
guy
the
was Hebrew.
Egyptian.
So he's like existing in two different worlds here,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But still raised in Pharaoh's house afterwards, right? And then this is what's so fabulous here, right? That check this out. I'm gonna show this one to you too. We said we set the precedent that, you know, the reason why they were there is it was all in a plan, right? Where even though they had the opportunity to stay, but still it was too good, that extra bedroom and that pool, still calling them back. And the Lord continued, I have marked well the plight of my people in Egypt, and I have heeded their outcry because of their taskmasters. Yes, I am mindful of their sufferings. I have come down to rescue them from the Egyptians and to bring them out of the land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, right? So God said, I hear their plight, right? I've marked well their plight, and I hear their call, heeded their outcry. But God sent them there in the first place. So it feels a bit disingenuous to be telling this to Moses, right? Moses doesn't know the story. It feels a bit disingenuous. It just does to me. I don't know. Thoughts? Merle?
I guess we have to know the circumstances of why God sent them there to begin with. But
well, God sent them there to begin with, so it would be an easier way to collect them as a people, right? It's not even just to be, because now it has to be that whole process.
But was there, I guess where I'm going is, did they know that that's why they were being sent there? Or did they have to figure it out, being a collective group, and figure out if this was the right thing to do in the midst of all their complaining?
So you think that maybe this was a test?
I think so. I think everything God did was a test. An
experiment to see.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting, right? This is very interesting.
Life is a test.
Like, exactly.
I'm gonna go Brad and then Safta.
Well, I'm a bit slow here, so I've been thinking about the business, processing the business about the name.
Yeah.
And didn't Pharaoh give Joseph an Egyptian name?
Yes.
When he was brought into Pharaoh's house?
Yes.
So are we meant to draw an analogy, a connection between these two by that bit of the story?
This is a fabulous question. Meant to is a very interesting way of phrasing it. I mean, I would say sure, all of it, yes. If that's going to push you to think a little bit differently, yeah, or just another way of exploration. I mean, it also pushes me to like the story of Esther, right? Esther wasn't her Hebrew name. Her Hebrew name was Hadass, right? Esther was her Persian name. Right, so it's a phenomenal. This is a phenomenal question that you asked, Brad. Phenomenal question. And maybe some of us also have Hebrew names that we were given at birth that we don't necessarily go by. Some of us may have names that are similar to our Hebrew names. Some of us may have Hebrew names that are very different from our are given,
English, huh?
what am I going to call it? Secular, English, America. I don't know. I don't know what else to call it. Right, Brad? It's a really great question. Go ahead, Safta.
Okay. The whole idea is that out of this whole story, the 10 Commandments were formed. They didn't have it before.
Correct.
So the idea of forming a community and a
Mhm.
society that will believe in this one God, which was also a result of a way of life that was different before. And it says that we're still going to be living with other nations. Aknani, Yevusi, Achiti. It was never only us in Israel. It's the idea that we became unique regarding our set of laws and the way the society was formed with all the do's and don'ts. And that came from experience. And when they went down to Egypt, they didn't have all this. They were very much
Correct.
like the other nations. When
Yep.
they came out, their identity was born differently, in a different
Correct.
way.
Beautiful.
And the whole idea is to form a society that will have a set of laws, order, law and order, and mitzvot, how to behave with other people. So it will be the contrary of what was going on in Egypt. No slavery. Even if you have a slave, you got to let him go. You got to pay him his wages. So it's a different thing. It's not the same. They came out, they became different.
So this is fascinating point. This is fascinating point. And you know what? I'm gonna, let's see what we got here. This is a fascinating point because I think it very much goes to, and this is a very interesting idea to me, you know, it's a famous saying. We all know the saying that what does Moses say to Pharaoh? Jewish, not Jewish, everybody knows the saying. What does Moses say to Pharaoh?
Risa, wave goodbye.
Risa, wave goodbye.
Let my people go.
Let my people go. Right? Let my people go. Super, super famous saying. Everybody knows that. Jewish, not Jewish,
And we're
doesn't matter.
still saying it.
However, that's not the whole sentence. It's not let my people go, exclamation point. It's let my people go, ... Okay, get ready for
They
this.
should serve my God.
Worship
Okay, hold on, Safta, because that's the thing. It can be translated in different ways. Ya'avdeni, right? Let my people go so that they may ya'avdeni, which is often translated as so they may worship me. It also is translated as so they may serve me. The word, right? Ya'avdeni. Get ready for this. The word in there is eved. Get ready for this. Check it out. What is the word for slave? Eved. Eved. What is the word for worshiper? Eved. It's the same word. So one could translate it as let them, go from being slaves of Pharaoh to being slaves of God. Go from being a slave of Pharaoh to becoming a slave of God. But we don't translate it that way. We translate it as going from a slave of Pharaoh to a worshiper of God. That's the way we translate it, right? Because here was like, well, let my people go, to the freedom. But yeah, what are we saying? We're in just a couple of weeks, you're going to get the Torah, the mitzvot, which is a commandment. I'm commanding you to do something. You got to do this, which means that I'm the commander and you are the commandee. That doesn't sound like pure freedom to me, right? So it's different. It's not an idea of just pure freedom. We're still bound by something, but there is a major difference, and you can see it in the translation of the word eved, right? To going from a slave to being a worshiper. What a worship is an idea of following and believing in and taking in, and I am just going to dedicate, right? What is the difference between being a slave of Pharaoh and a worshiper of God? All the work that we do, the rules that we follow, all of those kind of things. To be a slave of Pharaoh and to do all that work and to follow, whose life does that benefit? That benefits Pharaoh's life. The Israelite people were no more than a tool, not human, an extension of a hammer or a shovel, right? We sing this song with the kids. Dig, 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 dig your shovels deep. Bang, 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 bang your hammers low, right? We sing the song. So Pharaoh's got, oh, dude, my hammer broke. Whatever, throw it away, get a new one. Oh, dude, my Israelite slave broke. Whatever, throw him away, get a new one. Right? That's slave. That's Eved, slave. But worshiper, right? All of those rules, the laws, who are they there to benefit? Whose life? Not God's. God, it doesn't matter to do these things. Does it affect God's existence? No. They're there for us, for our lives, to make our lives better. Something like you were even explaining, right? Ways of community, how to live together, how to treat people, how to be with people, whether it's your people, whether it's other people, how to exist, outside of an island of just yourself, right? And that, I think, is one of the beautiful differences between this idea of slave versus worshiper, still coming from the same root, right? But you got to look at it in its context. Does God need us to do all these things for God's No, it's for us, right? It's for us. Now, this is also interesting. Now we're going to jump ahead in the couple minutes that we have left. The difference between the first 9 plagues and the last plague. The difference between the first 9 plagues and the last plague. Right? What was the last plague? The death of the firstborn. Now, how did the Israelites make sure that their firstborn were not killed in this plague?
On the door.
What does that mean, the door, Risa?
Blood on the lintel.
Okay, well, now how did the blood get there?
Sacrifice.
How did it get there?
The Israelites put it there.
You're looking at me like, duh, the Israelites put it
They
there.
sacrificed the lamb.
They sacrificed.
It's not so duh. Let me tell you why it's not so duh.
Why?
You're duh. It's not so duh. There is a midrash that says that actually there were many, many Israelites who died at that time. Why?
Because families didn't do the sacrifice.
Because the families didn't do it. They didn't put the blood on the doorpost, right? The first 9, they were just passive observers. They had nothing to do. They didn't have to do anything for those plagues to affect the Egyptians, right? Even the darkness, they're not, not dark for me, not dark for me. I don't understand why you can't see. I see fine, right? They were passive observers. But in order for the 10th one not to affect them, they had to be active participants in their own redemption. We say that this is one of the defining moments in the transition of going from just passive receivers of what's going on there to having to be active creators and partners with God in their own redemption. You got to do something about it. You can't just let it wash over you. Okay, take care of me. No, we have a job to do. You want freedom, you want redemption, you want to be able to create and live a full life to your fullest, you have to take an active role in it. Right?
Here I am.
And that's what they say is what is one of the most beautiful parts for me. One of the most beautiful parts for me. Go ahead, Merle. Were you raising your finger?
Isn't taking that active role apply to everything that we do? I mean, isn't that the real world?
That's what I'm saying. That's the big bang of our people, of our redemption, they say. That's the beginning. That's the big bang. That's the supernal point. Not just the actual exodus, not the parting of the sea, not the going and receiving the Torah, not doing all those things as the initial moment, that supernal point, the big bang of us as a people. It was there. It was taking action of putting the blood on the doorpost. You got to do it. So with that, right, I want to tell everybody, Chag Sameach, Chag Pesach Sameach. Have some time with your thoughts and thinking about what this idea of what does this really mean? Freedom, redemption, possibility, opportunity. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon, right? Did everybody give emails and needed to get those emails? Roy,
We got
Brad,
them.
we got them. Risa, we good?
Yeah.
Rabbi, may I share with everybody that this has made my Pesach so special? Because what
Oh, I'm
Risa
so
said,
glad.
Risa said, come. I don't have transportation, but just the fact that she said come made my day, made my life, made
glad.
my year. Thank you, Risa.
Fabulous.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're
Risa.
welcome.
I'm going to go play a song on the piano and practice and get ready for my opportunity to be a service.
Go
There
for
you
it.
go.
Go
Go
for it.
for it.
Israel.
Donna.
Everyone
Go
is
ahead.
welcome to come to Phoenix.
We love you.
I thought they told us then we need to leave Egypt. I'm not going back. Are you kidding me?
Not that bad yet.
Phoenix. Yet. Keyword being yet. Yeah. That's
And
what
we
they said
refilled
in
our pool
Goshen.
yesterday.
It's not that
and
bad yet.
Nice and cool.
Bad. Risa, wait, can I have your email? I want to give it to that student who's like, yeah, I totally want to come.
Why don't I give you Aviva's?
Yeah, give me Aviva's.
Aviva Levin,
Aviva Levin.
1969. That's the year she was born.
69.
At Gmail.
Great. So let her know that I'm sending over this guy and his wife. They're fabulous people.
Well,
his name is Jerry Cuden.
No, I think if you write to Aviva and give her the information, she'll invite them directly.
Perfect. Fabulous. Wonderful. Thank you.
And by the way, Risa, I'm 69 years old.
Good night, Nahara.
Yeah,
great.
Chag Sameach, everybody.
I love you.
Chag Sameach.
Bye, Panina. Bye, Roy.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Rabbi.
Bye.